Well, folks, this video is full of good news and bad news. The good news, this dresser has solid wood drawers, solid wood handles, and solid wood legs. The bad news, the top and sides are laminate, which means they need to be painted. Good news, I got to try some new products. Bad news, they didn't quite turn out the way I expected. Also, I've been sick all week, I'm still sick, so my voiceover today won't be quite the same as usual, but hopefully you stick with me and watch this crazy transformation. My name is Angie and I refinish furniture. Sometimes I paint and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Okay, so this is your typical mid-century style dresser. This would have been made in the late 60s. At first glance, to someone that might not quite know what they're looking for, this could look like a solid wood dresser, but it's not. It does have a solid wood frame, it has solid wood legs, drawer faces, handles, but the top and sides are laminate over hardboard. And even the solid wood drawer faces, the grain that you see here is not the actual grain, this is a printed grain. So when I remove this factory faux grain, you're going to see a completely different type of wood. I really like working on these pieces because they're not rare, they're not particularly valuable from a monetary or historical standpoint, so they're really fun to experiment on, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. This piece did have one wooden runner that was pretty chewed up from the metal track. Luckily, I save extras when I repurpose things, so I'll be able to replace that. If you want to see how to actually make new runners, I will put a link below to a video where I actually do that, and you can see how to do it. There are 9 drawers on this piece. I'm going to be sanding 3 down to raw wood and staining them. The other 6 I'm going to be painting the same color that I'm painting the top and sides of the piece. Now, a lot of this is fairly self-explanatory, so I'm going to stop talking. My voice hurts. I can't imagine it's very enjoyable listening to me scratch my way through this, so I'll pop in when I need to, but sit back and just enjoy. If you were on my community page this past week, you would have seen a poll where I asked you what color I should paint this, and I didn't show you a picture of the furniture on purpose. I just wanted to sort of gauge where people's minds were when it came to color. And you guys picked elderberry, and even though this is way outside of my comfort zone, I'm glad you did because I've been wanting to try this color. This is one of those projects where I find people either love it or they hate it, with not a lot of in between, and I can totally understand that. Oddly enough, even though my shirt is similar to what I'm using, this isn't my color, typically. And it's going to look a lot pinker when it's wet versus when it's dry. When it's dry, it's going to deepen a bit. Now, I said in the beginning that there were some things in this project that didn't quite go as planned, and that is correct. It was one of those cases of sometimes less is more, and I don't know if it was just me not feeling well and my brain not working properly, but I kept second guessing myself and thinking I needed to do more. And you'll see what I mean shortly. You might be wondering here why on the last laminate piece I primed, and on this one I'm not. The last one was a bit of a different surface. I wasn't able to scuff it up quite in the same way, and I was using a light color. With this piece, there weren't any areas on top that were damaged. It was all intact. And Fusion actually adheres extremely well. I'm doing a very thin first coat, which I always do whether I'm rolling or brushing. Don't go for full coverage on your first coat. It's a recipe for disaster, and more often than not, you'll have paint that doesn't quite dry properly or adhere properly. The real coverage is going to be on your second and third coats. Now at this point, I'm actually really liking this color, but I'm trying to, as I always do as I'm doing this, I'm trying to think ahead and picture what this is going to look like once all the paint is on and the drawers are ready. I don't know why, but I was worried it was going to look a little bit plain. So on the filing cabinet I did a couple of weeks ago, I used some of this embossing paste and a little graining tool to put some embossed stripes on it. And I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to do on the painted drawers. Just vertical stripes, extremely subtle, just to add a little bit of visual interest. And I actually did really like how it looked. I mixed a little bit of paint with the embossing paste. This wouldn't be my final coat. I would have to do one more coat of actual paint over top of this. But I applied it after my first coat of paint on the drawers, which is why you can see it looks a little bit scratchy there. That's perfect for adhesion. So with this embossing paste, basically I just painted on kind of like a thick paint, just sort of slap it on there however you need to get it on, and then smooth it out before you go in with the graining tool. Basically all you do with this little rubber comb is just with a steady hand, pull straight down, and then wipe off any excess. Then you go and do your next line, and if you happen to mess something up, you can honestly just take your paintbrush, repaint that area, and try again. Now, like I said, I wanted this to be very subtle. If you want more pronounced lines or whatever design you want to do, you can just use the embossing paste on its own. I mixed it with paint because I want it to be a little bit more subtle. I did this to all 6 drawers and set them aside to dry for the rest of the day. Once that texture is dry, I'll go in and do my next coat of paint. In the meantime, I've lightly sanded the top and sides of this, and I'm going to go in with my second and third coat of paint. So putting my scratchy voice aside, how are you enjoying this video so far? Do you like this color? Are you thinking I've lost my mind? Let me know what you think in the comments below. So just like the drawer faces, these solid wood legs are usually not the best quality wood. There's often some marks and dings, discolorations or defects, but that's okay. So here's where things start to go a little bit wrong. I've never used this product before, and I probably shouldn't have tried it on this piece, first of all. This is Fusion Mineral Paint's gel stain and top coat in the color black, and this has been sitting in my room for almost a year, and it has settled a lot, so I needed to do a lot of stirring. You can use this on wood or over paint as a glaze, which is what I wanted to do, but having never used this before, I didn't really think ahead. And what I would have done differently is, much like when you go to apply antiquing wax or a black wax to a piece, normally you want to do a clear wax first, and it allows your darker wax to move around easier. And I never even considered that with this. I was going to wipe this on and wipe it off kind of like a glaze. But because I hadn't sealed the paint first, it was actually extremely difficult to do this, and I did not like the results at all. That is 100% user error, and I'm sharing my blunder with you so that you don't make the same mistake. If you want to use this as a glaze, I highly recommend you seal whatever you're working on first. So once I did the first drawer, I decided, nope, that I just wasn't liking how that was looking. So I decided to use this just full strength, full on, paint it on, let it dry. This is a gel stain and top coat in one. And this is literally how you're supposed to use it. So basically this is going to look like a glaze, but a very thick glaze. I was hoping for more of a subtle look, but I kind of fudged that. Also, normally when I apply any type of top coat to the top of a dresser like this, I go lengthwise. I was a bit worried about this drying up on me before I got from one side to the other, so I opted to do it across the top, which is, again, not really normally what I do, but at this point I was trying to salvage this. I definitely don't hate it, but I feel like if I'd had a little bit more time to work on it and was probably feeling a little bit better also, I might not have made some of these mistakes. So here is where I messed up yet again. I was initially going to do a beige wash on the drawers, and I decided at the last minute, hey, let's try this. This is Fusion Mineral Paint's Stain and Finishing Oil in the color Driftwood. And this is absolutely beautiful, especially on light wood. It tints it and seals it all in one, and it's a very nice, natural looking color. The problem is I just wasn't loving the tone of it in comparison to what the dresser now looks like. It just wasn't warm enough. And I found the same thing once I had finished the drawers. So the drawer here on the top, this is with the driftwood. And the one on the bottom here is one that I warmed up slightly with a little bit of stain. And I mean, you can see here, it's not terrible, but I just found there was too much contrast. So what I opted to do was use a little bit of this Minwax stain. I wanted to use one of my General Finishes gel stains, but I had run out, so I had to use this. Now, because the Driftwood Stain and Finishing Oil actually is a top coat, I knew that this stain here wasn't really going to absorb much, but that's okay. I just needed to lightly tint it, and as you can see, it worked perfectly. So to transform this dresser, I used Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Elderberry, and I should have left it at that, but I didn't. I also added some smooth embossing paste. I used the black gel stain and top coat as kind of a glaze. I initially used the Driftwood Stain and Finishing Oil, but I found it just wasn't quite warm enough, so I added a little bit of this Minwax English Chestnut stain on top of that. And then once the wood had dried, I sealed it with this beeswax finish. One thing that I didn't show was actually sanding down the insides of the drawers and sealing it with Howard Feed and Wax. Were I to start this project all over again, I absolutely would change some things. I would have just painted it in the elderberry and used the beeswax finish on top, which would have deepened the color. It would have been a nice, rich finish. Like I said, I don't hate what I did, and I know someone is absolutely going to love it. But for me, it just didn't pan out quite the way I expected, and that happens sometimes. So sure, I was tempted to not even do this as a video, but you know what? The reality is sometimes we do things that don't go as planned, so I always like to show that. I apologize for my horrible voice in this video, but thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.